Before the video starts, I just got approved for YouTube membership, so if you're interested in that rather than Patreon, then it's available. I made a level for 99 cents because I know how difficult it can be to pay for stuff nowadays. This is just an option for you. You do not have to donate any money, but leaving a like and a comment on my video would be great too. Thank you.
Welcome to the world of Tales from the Trip.
I'm 21, have horrible ADD, but no other health concerns. I'm almost always happy and content with my life. I'm emotionally stable, employed, and typically stress-free. To sum it up, I enjoy my life and use drugs to see crazy stuff, preferably in my apartment because the setting is so basic and mundane. I am also in my last year of undergrad and have been using Adderall for 12 years. Last year, I was switched to Vyvanse because it lasts longer and apparently has no potential for abuse, which is complete crap. The largest difference is that you cannot dome Vyvanse. I have tried it, and it burns like hell, then does nothing, since it requires a protein in your intestines to activate, or so I was told. Anywho, for the trip, one of my buddies stopped by after class around 6, and we each popped a 70 milligram Vyvanse. I took a swig of orange juice, put the capsule in my mouth, and crushed it open, then swallowed the capsule and the powder. My friend did the same, and in about 20 minutes, we began to feel the effects of the amphetamines. I reached the point where Adderall had no noticeable effect on me, and my friend has only done it twice before. Each time, he took a smaller dose throughout the night, then this initial, so we had a vastly different tolerance. First, I felt a burst of energy in my chest. I would say that it was mainly focused in my liver, but steadily rose up my spine throughout the next hour. My eyes were wide open. My brain was moving so fast that I was counting milliseconds between each tick of the clock. This may sound unpleasant, but it's the same as coke without the numbness, crash and burn, inability to get a woody, or the short 15-minute high. After another 5 hours, we left a small party at an apartment and headed back to my home. We then proceeded to pop another 70 milligrams each since my friend planned on staying up all of the next day and through his shift tomorrow. After swallowing the pills, we opened up a case of beer and housed it around 5 in the morning. During that time, I did not feel the slightest bit drunk, even after drinking 12 beers. So we lifted some weights, ran a few miles, and completely cleaned my apartment for the next 2 hours. The feeling that I felt from the second Vyvanse, however, was about 10 times stronger than what I felt from the first 70 milligrams. I could not stop talking. Time passed as if an hour was a second. I had huge blanks in my memory. I pissed every 5 to 10 minutes and was talking about the most random bullshit that I could think of at the time. Afterwards, 6 o'clock rolled around, and we thought the effects of the second pill we took earlier in the night faded. So of course, we popped another one, which was one of the worst ideas I have ever had. I was dehydrated from drinking. All the water that I drank throughout the night was instantly coming out the other end, and I had horrible nutter butter for a good 3 hours and 60 degrees. At this point, I took a shower, picked up an energy drink to sip on, went to class, and parted ways with my friend who went to work. From 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., I was completely restless. My entire body was numb from my waist down. Time was at a standstill, and all I wanted to do was go out and work out some more. But no, I have to take a quiz, and right in the middle of it was when I experienced my first ever psychosis moment from amphetamines. It was crazy. As I was about halfway through the quiz, I could no longer think clearly and could not focus my eyes on the text. When I lifted my head and looked around the room, I noticed my vision was completely flanged. All I saw was a circle of darkness around the outer field of my vision that slowly enveloped about half of my outer field of sight and then inversed itself. Now, instead of being unable to see out of the corner of my eyes, I could not see what I was looking directly at. Sounds fun, huh? It would have been if I knew that this episode was coming on, but I was completely stunned by it. I've done 400 milligrams of Adderall before a couple of times, and this experience on 210 milligrams of Vyvanse was much more intense. So much that I completely freaked out for the first time ever in my life. It was worse than acid by far. Now that I can't see a thing, I begin to panic and start breathing as like I was running a marathon. My face felt flushed and I was huffing and puffing as hard as I could, but it did not do a thing. Again, my panic continues to just blow out of proportion and I become completely unaware of where I was. I felt utterly confused and was convinced that I shit my pants. Luckily, I just had a wedgie and was sweating my nuts off in class. Now that I think I shit my pants, I suddenly smelt the world's most rancid pile of crap I have ever whiffed, millions worse than a ferret's. Eventually, I calmed down and realized that no one is paying attention to me because of the quiz, and I relax enough that I can see again and my sweating subsides. Just when I think it's over, the NOS energy drink I was sipping on my way to class hit me with round 2 as I began to answer the next quiz question after my freakout. This time, I would have sworn I had a full-blown panic attack. My heart was pounding at easily 200 something, my resting is 53. I suddenly could not understand where sounds were coming from or what was making them. The girl next to me, who was most likely making scratching noises with her pencil, sounded like a goddamn cow mooing. My vision became flanged again, only this time, I couldn't see anything. It was as if I was blinded by alternating darkness and light. Then I suddenly became very faint and felt like I was going to pass out. Since I just went through this, I calmed myself down by thinking it was nothing to be concerned about and tried thinking about anything other than where I was or what was happening. But my mind wandered and I was on the verge of fainting for what felt like an eternity. When my senses came back, I felt confused. Everything felt like a dream and I felt as though I couldn't interact with anything, not even to say, I think I'm dead. My face froze on the clock, and after about 5 minutes or so, I regained control and again tried to resume my test. This time, when I looked down at the test, it wasn't a freaking quiz anymore. I was looking at my hand and there was no quiz anywhere near me. I was in an empty room with inaudible whispering and cloaked figures that I could not make out. However, there was my hand that was unusually bright, and I was fascinated by it for just a moment when I noticed my leg. As I looked down at my jeans, it felt as though my leg wrapped around the entire world. I thought it was millions of pounds and had no end to it. But for some reason, my dark blue jeans were green. At this point, I completely flipped out, stumbled up to the teacher in a zombie-like daze, and mumbled something to her, which led her to collecting the quizzes and sending the class outside for a bathroom break. 4-hour class, 13 people, it wasn't uncommon. I don't remember the conversation I had with her, other than I could not look up from my leg that kept shifting colors, and everything she said was just inaudible. I managed to ramble something along the lines of, "What the hell is going on? I'm going to the hospital." My friend who took the Vyvanse with me the night before left his work and picked me up, then took me back to my apartment. All the while, I was in another world of emptiness, devoid of everything but my extremely screwed up vision. Once I got home, I managed to make a sandwich. I hadn't eaten in about 2 days at this point, super slow metabolism, and drank a pitcher of water about the size of a half-gallon. It required a lot of work on my friend's part because I don't really know anything about this other than what he told me. Afterwards, I felt great. The crazy world of no boundaries disappeared, and I came out of a state that seemed like a dungeon for the unassuming. After this trip, I learned that caffeine and alcohol induce the psychosis. Apparently, it helps to read the labels on medicine that describes how this drug interacts with others. One final note. For nearly 13 years, I've been on stimulants and can soundly state that I have none of the side effects. When I took Adderall, my usual dosage was 80 milligrams in the morning, at lunch, and at night. I don't have suicidal thoughts, I don't have eating or sleeping issues, or any of the other listed side effects listed from this medication. And yes, I've gone for 49 days with no Adderall after heavy use, and all I feel is a little less energetic, too little to notice. Then again, I suppose drugs are different for everyone, and I'm just special. Started off as a pretty normal summer evening with 2 friends. We normally smoke weed and drink, but tonight, one of my friends, whom we'll call B, had some Vyvanse. It turned out to be the worst drug experience I've ever had. The only other experience I'd had with a stimulant was DXM, so I should have already known bad things were to follow. But being stupid and pretty depressed, I said why not. At about 11:30 p.m., I decided to have a drink. I mixed up about 2 shots of Everclear and some cranberry juice and knocked it back. I was feeling pretty buzzed, but not nearly what I wanted, so I poured another. By this time, I was thoroughly washed, but I wasn't done. Around 12 a.m., I decided I was still too sober for my emotional state, so I smoked a bowl of cannabis and laid back. At that point, I was feeling good. I was warm and comfortable. I just laid back and watched my friends play GTA 4 while I chilled, but I was getting tired. I popped a caffeine pill, 300 milligrams I believe, and continued to chill. A little while later, B brings out a bottle of pills that he identified as Vyvanse and says that A and I should try them. He explained what they were. I had hung out with people who did amphetamines, but had no experience myself. So, A takes 2 pills. Being mildly cautious, but not sober enough to know better, I take 1. For a long while, I don't really feel anything unusual. Around 5:30 a.m., as the sun was rising, I started to realize that I was tweaking. I was talking quickly and going on random tangents. Little sounds breaking the silence in the room would make me jump like a flash inside my head. Everything felt as if it was going faster. It was around that time I started to realize that something was amiss. I could feel that my heart was beating much faster. I normally have mild tachycardia, around 90 to 100 beats per minute, but this was quite a bit higher. As the day wore on, I felt progressively worse. It felt like my heart was about to explode out of my chest. My fingertips began to tingle. The sensation slowly creeped up into my arms, legs, and face. The tingling came and went sporadically. At this point, I began to feel like I should be worried, but my friend assured me it was a typical experience. About 3 p.m., I had to lie down. I felt a burning, stabbing nausea in the pit of my stomach, but I couldn't vomit. I was soaked in sweat, but felt like I had just sat outside naked on a winter day. I had started to twitch rather noticeably. My whole body ached, and I couldn't sit still, no matter how hard I tried. I got up to go to the bathroom, and realized that I was still urinating a lot, and that it was just as clear as it was the night before. I went to the computer and Googled Vyvanse, where I realized it also acted as a diuretic. The combination of the alcohol, caffeine, and amphetamines were quickly and severely dehydrating me. I started to get really worried. My normally high heart rate had skyrocketed to about 140 beats per minute, and the more water I drank, the more I simply urinated out. I laid back down while A and B relaxed and tried to gather myself, but at this point, I was panicking. The physical discomfort was too overwhelming, and I was becoming paranoid. I called another friend of mine to give me a ride. We went to the county hospital, and I waited about 2.5 hours before being able to see a nurse. I explained to her everything I had taken, and they sent me down the hall for an EKG. The whole time, I was on edge. Nauseous, twitchy, numb, heart racing, and scared. The EKG tech came back and told me that I was experiencing PACs, palpitations, and that he was taking me back to the emergency wing. When I got there, another nurse asked me some questions, which I was barely able to answer. She then hooked me up to an IV and injected something into it to slow my heart. Eventually, my heart normalized to about 100 to 105 beats per minute, and there was nothing else they could do but keep me under observation. Feeling a little better, I checked out and my friend drove me home. I've been at home for about 18 to 19 hours, and I'm still having trouble keeping enough liquids. Cold sweats come and go. I've got splitting headaches, muscle pain, and my whole body feels so heavy, I have trouble going up and down stairs. But my appetite has returned, and I'm keeping fluids in me. I don't think I'm quite in the clear, but I'm certainly better than I was. I would not recommend to anyone to take this drug, especially not in combination with large amounts of other diuretics. The effects seem to be lasting longer with me than either of my friends, which may be because I'm a very small girl. Whatever the case, I will be glad when this finally ends, and I hope it does sooner rather than later. This is not something I will be doing ever again. Hey, it's the Trip Keeper here. I just want to interject and say that DXM is not a stimulant. I repeat, not a stimulant. I know she said it was, but it's not. Also, please hit that like button if you're enjoying this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. You guys know the drill. I interject every video. Also, let me know if you want to hear my personal Vyvanse story. I have a couple, which all were really good, except the first one. I took 140 milligrams because I didn't know what it was, like this person did. They didn't know what it was or anything about it, so I just took it and said, what the hell? I was 15, and it was crazy. It was amazing the first night, let me tell you, but when I didn't get any sleep and my stomach started hurting in class the next day, I knew I had a problem, so alright, let's move on to the next story. I'm in high school and had a really busy week ahead of me. My teachers had booked at least a test every day of the week, and I was way behind on notes. In other words, I needed a miracle. My friend hooked me up with 3 30-milligram Adderalls, and my other friend gave me 2 50-milligram Vyvanse. I went to CVS to buy no-dose. Then the fun began. I woke up at 8 a.m. Sunday morning and pulled an all-nighter no problem that night without taking a single drug. Monday during the day, I started crashing. I snuck into the bathroom and cut one of the Adderall in half and blew the 15-milligram line. In 5 minutes, my fatigue was washed away and everything was almost severely clear. I went to pull another all-nighter that night, blowing the rest of the 15 milligrams that I had left. I finished a giant chunk of my work with no problems. I was alert, and my teeth were grinding a little, and I hadn't eaten since Saturday. Things continued well and good until Thursday night. I still hadn't slept or eaten yet, and I went to the bathroom only once a day to pee for about 3 minutes. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday were much the same. No sleep, more Adderall, no significant problems. Thursday night, amphetamine psychosis set in. The caffeine pills were causing this obnoxious buzzing noise in my head, and every shadow became an enemy. Things in my room became animated. I chain-smoked 3 packs of cigarettes to calm down. At 4 a.m., I emerged from a sort of trance state, 300 feet into the woods behind my house. It was raining. I was barefoot and shirtless. My biology textbook was on my head, and I was holding a flashlight under my chin. I have, to this day, zero recollection of ever going outside. I began to tremble, and my head became unbearably heavy. I popped my last Vyvanse and went to school on Friday. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the worst day of my life. The people in the hallway melted into an amorphous blob that threatened to swallow me. Time moved equal parts slow and fast. The muscles in my back and arms began to slowly stiffen, like they were turning to stone. My eyes stung so badly and were so dry that blinking was excruciating. I broke 3 pencils because I was shaking so hard. Loud noises caused me to bury my face and hide. I didn't know who I was or where I was. Everything was terrifyingly unfamiliar. The bell ringing almost made my heart stop, and the legs of every desk began to sway. It started to feel like the air was gelatinous, and moving became an unbelievable effort. Thinking I needed to come down from the amphetamine high, I went to a friend's after school to smoke some weed. After 1 bowl, I felt my blood pressure skyrocket. The tension in my veins was unbearable, and I kept hallucinating that my skin was bursting open from the pressure exerted on my blood vessels. The world began to blur in and out of focus. I drank a bottle of water, took 2 Tylenol PM, and passed out. My friend reported that I was sleepwalking for about a half an hour. I would wake up periodically, laughing and crying almost simultaneously. I also was told that I sat bolt upright, screaming 3 times, as if I'd had a bad nightmare. I sweat through her sheets. Everything was soaked. I then slept for 15 hours straight. I smelled awful. I looked like absolute hell, and it felt like I'd been hit by a bus. Honestly, amphetamines are fine for 1 all-nighter or recreational use, but I was awake for about 135 hours straight. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.